Welcome to the Nourish You podcast, where we question the traditional model of dieting and nutrition and focus on choice, fun, and health for the whole mind, body, and spirit. I'm Jana Maurer, a non-traditional registered dietitian and well-being expert, and I want to challenge you to take 2% of your day today, listen to this episode, and make this your health win for the day. Pop in your earbuds, strap on your walking shoes, or pour a big glass of wine, whatever you need for today, and tune out the world as much as you can for the next 30 minutes, and let's fill up your cup. Well, Michelle, I'm so excited to have you on the Nourish You podcast. You are a fellow registered dietitian, but also you have a completely just like unique approach. And so I wanted to have you on just to share and have that conversation to share with other women as well. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you support women in their health and well-being journey.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm sincerely, just so happy to be here and honored to be on your podcast. So thank you. And a little bit about me. Sure. So like you said, I am a registered dietitian, but I think my greatest passion is really helping other women find their inner power and be their true self, accept themselves, understand that their worthiness and their value is really something that comes from within, not something that, we're taught and conditioned from society, diet culture, that is our bodies or our appearances. So I kind of do a combination of, yes, nutrition coaching and also women's empowerment coaching, and just really helping women understand that the more they're empowered or connected to themselves, the better their life can be and can get, including their health. And so that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. Well, I like we talked about before recording, you have been pivotal on my own journey. You really came into my life at a time where I was like questioning all the things, and you have a way of just gently calling up women to step into themselves and to step into their higher selves and not be ashamed to do so, and to live that in a confident way. And it was just so eye-opening, and I think that that's something that I continue to want to share that conversation around, is that you're not just like born like a default, like confident person. I don't think that just happens. Like, it's through reps and it's through, mentorship and getting connected with other women to support you in this way. Why? So kind of being a dietitian, like, that's like not what people are like. That's not what people think of when they think of registered dietitians, right? Like, I feel like people think of like, oh, I'm going to go to a dietitian to get a meal plan, or they're going to tell me like what I can and can't eat. Why, or like what got you on the path to really stepping into this new way of supporting women?
Yes, that's a really good question. And I just want to say back to you as well, Jana, that it was it's still an honor to know you and be in your magic as well. So that was pivotal in my own journey as well. So I just want to say that. And that was, thank you for being in part of my journey in that way. It's been nothing but amazing. I think the program we were briefly referring to is Connected and Courageous, which, yes, that kind of answers your question of like, how did this go from nutrition coaching to more of, women's empowerment? And I think what I came to realize is that from a young age, or I won't get too much into my story, young age, from infancy. No. But truly, when I got into nutrition, it was around like maybe like 14 years old or whatever, freshman year of high school. I also just at the same time happened to come across The Secret. And I share this because looking back, like on my journey now, I realized that, as much as I could be like a nutrition nerd and like, see the value and the power of nutrition, I also really was pulled towards The Secret, the power of our thoughts, mindset, things like that, because of that underlying empowerment piece. So both of those things, like being empowered or connected to your power, and also the way we choose to nourish ourselves, our physical body, be through nutrition, and also, mind and soul. Those are like ways to be empowered. So to me, it's like very synergistic, if you will, or like holistic. So in my crazy mind, like those things all overlap. However, of course I went the nutrition route and became a dietitian and coached a lot of people through nutrition, which has been totally so enjoyable and something I still love to do. However, I think the pivot for me was kind of my own journey, and then noticing like it on the personal front, and then noticing other women who were lacking that as well, or kind of where I was as well. And then I think when I also became empowered through food, meaning like, I think you'd understand this and hopefully people listening, but like when you start to really develop that trust and really that confidence around how to fuel your body, and it's becoming like what I call like that normalized nutrition, second nature, you have this sovereignty in a sense, like in this one area of your life. Cause you're like, I'm not affected by fad diets anymore. Like I'm confident, like I know how to take care. It's empowering. And I think what also happened, Jana, like it kind of trickled over in other areas of my life where that same vibe in your physical nourishment kind of trickled over to other areas. And the things that happened in my life were kind of asking me to step up and become more connected and confident the way that I was with nourishing my physical body and nutrition in these other ways, like in more of the life sense, if that makes sense. So I feel like that's kind of what led me to it. And then I think this is a little sidestep here, but I think what also I found is like the more empowered women are, just in the general sense of like, oh, wait, my worth is inherent, or, oh, wait, like I don't need to chase a number on the scale. And like, I'm actually craving soul nourishment. I'm not craving food, or I'm not craving like being skinny. It's actually something deeper within me that's not recognized, which I think is all in the realm of kind of what I do. And then their nutrition was getting better and their health was getting better, and like body, like things like that were like, I don't know. To me, it was all kind of a hodgepodge or whatever. Yeah. Like that's kind of what led me to it. I don't know. Hopefully that answers a little bit.
Yeah. I always share with like my coaching clients, like one sacred act can lead to many other sacred acts. So it can be a really sacred act to nourish your body. And that can be the first stepping stone to be able to start setting boundaries in areas of your life that you have been wonky with. It could be the first step of, buying a outfit that you've wanted for years to really feel like confident going into a job interview and asking for a raise. Like it just really like catapults into many different areas where, yes, maybe food was the starting point, but it allows us to really be confident in our own abilities that extend into so many different areas of our life. And like that was, I felt that way like when I started really like disconnecting from listening to like that top down model, like someone telling me what to do and like what was right for my body. It was like this, it was like this internal like rebellion of like, screw you, I'm tired of hearing this shit, because it was leaving me like feeling horrible. Like I would listen to their advice, and then at the end I would still feel horrible. And I just thought like, I don't know, like what, like one day I just thought like, if I'm listening to their advice and their advice is making me feel just like more unworthy, more frustrated, more angry, more everything that's not positive, like, why am I listening to that advice? Like, it was just, I don't know, it was just a light bulb moment. And so that started the process of really disconnecting from being told what to do and learning, hey, like, what if I tuned into my own stuff? Like, what if I actually trusted myself? What if I like, ate when I was hungry and stopped when I wasn't, like it's a very, air quoting. So people know like it's the little things that really do add up to have that self-efficacy and that self-trust that lead to that empowerment.
100%. And I just want to add one more thing here, Jana, because you just reminded me of something like what you're describing. I think is also part of like, to me was like naturally like, oh, women's empowerment or like beyond the food. It's like, I notice these patterns, especially with women when it comes to nutrition and like fueling your body. And what I mean by that is like, it was what I call the soft stuff / feminine stuff / intangible stuff. I don't know. In my world, that's kind of what I call it. And what I mean by that, it's not that you're not smart enough to say, hey, like, this is the nutrition education, like, let's go implement it, or like whatever. But what I started to find is like, how do I say this? You need a level of I matter, and like, I'm going to make the time for me, or like, just because the food is free or my mother-in-law is offering me a second helping, I get to say no. So it's almost like using this discretion and the lack thereof making yourself a priority and feeling worthy was getting in the way of like a lot of my clients' nutrition success, where it's like, it's not that you can't do X, Y, and Z. It's that we can't see ourselves as a priority, and that we can't see ourselves worthy enough of like putting our needs first, and also using our discretion, kind of like you were describing, Jenna, of like, oh, well, I was following everyone else's method. And like, I don't know, like a lot of the solutions were like, I found the common ground was like, girl, we need to step into your worth. Girl, we need to connect you to your body. Girl, we need to start making you like understand that there you have a filter. And just because something, and what I call an energetic filter, and just because you see it on TikTok or because your coworker's doing it, sure as hell doesn't mean that it might be the best thing for you. So there were these things that like you can also use in other areas of your life that I found like with nutrition coaching were imperative, like at least were what I was doing, like to help these women like be connected to their power, connected to their bodies, and use their discernment. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like that was also a huge theme, and like, really made me into like the empowerment stuff, I feel.
Yeah. Well, and I've always found that it's like a slippery slope, because in so many ways, like, we want to be told what to do, but on the back end, we really do not want to be told what to do. Like, there's just like, again, that like rebellious aspect of us of like being so tired of being told what to do in all the different areas. And we want to have that. We don't want that. Like, ultimately, we don't want that. We want some guidance. We want some support. We want encouragement, but we don't really want to be told what to do. It just never really like works out well. So why do you think it's really hard for women in general to listen to their intuition?
That's a really hold on. I just want to say one thing, because you were saying we don't want to be told what to do. And I just quickly want to touch on that. We don't. And I think that it's not that, and I want to make this clear to women or to everyone. It's not that you don't, when you're connected and you're empowered, it's not that you don't seek out like professional guidance. It's not that you don't, ask a plumber to fix your pipes because you think you could, like, it's not, it's just like, you have to be connected in the process and use your discernment, and you could still get the guidance, but it's like, how can I make this work best for me? And in my opinion, when it comes to nutrition, the only way to have that freedom and long-term success is if you find that balance of understanding what to do and getting that guidance. Like, here you go, Jana, like, this is what you need to do. Like, that is part of why we hire a coach or whatever, professional help. However, it's that dance of like making it go through that filter and figuring out how it works best for you. So I just want to like, I feel the need to always clarify that of like, it doesn't mean that you don't get guidance or someone can't help guide you. It just means that like, if you're showing up to your coach and is like, okay, well, yep, just tell me exactly what to do for something like nutrition, it's just not going to work long-term, because it's like, maybe something like, just show me what to do to get me through to put, I don't even know. I was going to say to put air in my tires, but that was the lamest example, but like something where like, you don't need to learn it for life, but it's just like, just show me how to fix this. That's fine. When it comes to nutrition, which is a lifelong thing, you can't just show up and say, okay, Jana, just tell me exactly what I need to eat. Like, you're never going to find success or freedom, which I think most women ultimately want around food and their body. So I just want to say that.
Yeah, love it. No, I'm so glad that you like really describe that a little bit more, because it's so true. Like, to get to that freedom and to get to that peace, we really do have to have that higher level of understanding and the support system. I mean, to be able to continue to navigate like what does this really look like? And am I moving in the right direction, and have that reassurance? Like that's so pivotal in the journey as well.
Totally. So yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. But to your second really good question, why is it so hard to trust your intuition? I think a couple things come up for me personally, and also what I've seen with women. I think, first of all, it's again, intuition, or the idea of that, even like connecting to yourself. I think that goes into that camp of like intangibleness, just, it's almost like astrology, like you can't see it. And there's so much like whatever, like just skepticism. Like, so there's like this intangible piece to it, which feels like risky to follow, if that makes sense, where it's like versus that solid quote unquote meal plan here. Well, there's data. I'm going to follow this. There's not necessarily, this might not be the right, some people might disagree with me, but there might be some data on this, but like, you don't have that same like tangible data unless like you look back and think like, this is a really great way to strengthen your intuition and like that confidence to trust your intuition. But like, if you look back and think of all the times that you trusted what you thought was your intuition and it went well or whatever. But for a lot of women, I think we're so it's this intangibleness and kind of like almost taboo, or not as valued as like following a strict data like plan. But also we're conditioned to not listen to it. So like when you say, oh, just trust yourself, most people in our society, what are we conditioned? We're conditioned to do what mom said, dad said, teacher said, the thing said, the directions, and don't get me wrong, to an extent, I think that's part of the healthy masculine. And we need, again, going back to that professional guidance, a plumber's going to come over. He's going to tell you how to he's going to fix it. No one's disputing that. That's a horrible example. But I think it's two things here. It's this like intangibleness that may be a little bit taboo. There's a lack of trust in it. And then number two, like we're not conditioned to turn inwards. I mean, I don't know about you, Jana, this is another thing that like really spoke to me of like helping women and creating spaces like Connected and Courageous is how many times in your life, like, are you really encouraged to say, well, like, what do you think? Or like, you feel into that and get back to me with an answer, like, I don't know about you, but that's one of the most therapeutic things that a friend or someone could do for me. Like, before helping me, like, well, tell me, like, how does that feel for you? We're not taught that. We're so quick. We want to give advice. We want to say, oh, we'll just do this. And I think that's why we have trouble trusting. And then the third or fourth here is like, we don't really know what that looks like. So for a lot of us, if you haven't done it, it's like, you're like, oh, my intuition, like our heads will get in the way and be like, oh, well, is that intuition? Is that fear? Is that anxiety? Which is totally normal and beginning the process of getting connected to your intuition, higher self, whatever. But we're like, we haven't done it before as much. So we just are like afraid to trust it.
Yeah. I know, just for my own self, I really struggle with the idea of having to be perfect. And if it's not perfect, then it basically can't be done, or shouldn't be done, or shouldn't be shared, or any of those things. And that, like, I mean, just from a young child, like my mom will share stories of how I was that way. And even thinking about like in dietetics school, right? Like there was one answer and only one answer. Like, I mean, and then now you get out into the real world, you're like, there are 10 million different answers. Like, and it's,
there was one answer for some of the nutrition questions.
I know.
There really isn't.
Exactly. And it becomes, it's all relative, right? Like that is a common saying in nutrition. But for me, I really struggled with the idea that I have to get it right. I have to get it right. And I put a lot of pressure on myself to, and again, I'm air quoting, like, get it right. And I still to this day, I struggle with that, of feeling this need to be perfect, like to be this perfect woman, versus like this progressing woman. And I think that is a huge distinction to say, like, we as humans and we as women, our goal is not to be like the epitome of your being is not to be this perfect entity. Like really what we're looking for is to continue to see this progression as a human being, to, like to learn from, our faults, our failures, whatever, to, continue to live that higher self aspect. And as we step away from, I think, the self-imposed, in some ways, need to be perfect, it allows us to see many different answers that could be for you, like the individual. But it's hard, so how do you start the process of being an empowered woman in this area?
Yes. Well, I think something that you're saying that comes to mind as part of at least the start, in my opinion, is that permission to let go of perfectionism. I think that it's always like the mental piece, because what you were describing, I think, is so real and honest, where like a lot, and again, going back to like trusting your intuition or not, it's like, yeah, because if you're so hung up on, oh my God, is this going to be the perfect answer, the perfect choice or whatever? And I think we've all struggled with that. That was one of my biggest limiting beliefs. Like, there's a right way and a wrong way. And if I do it the wrong way, I'm not going to be loved. Like, that's my boiled down belief. However, like you said, like, we're human. So like, you have to kind of be willing to get a little messy, and also have a little trust that, like, if something is quote unquote, air quotes over here as well, wrong, like decision wise, it's really not wrong. It's just guiding you into like, okay, this wasn't right. Right. So when we are connected and we are aware, it's like, okay, whoop, this doesn't feel right. However we feel those cues in our bodies, everyone's a little different. You can never really make a wrong choice, if you will. And something I've heard, if, people listening are spiritual or not here, but so I don't know how you'll feel, but is that there is no right or wrong in the universe. Like, whatever you decide, like, the universe will support you. Like, it's always working for your best interest. So like, I think if anyone's like afraid of like that, being perfect or like that right or wrong decision, like maybe that will give a little peace of mind. Like, you can't do it wrong. The only thing a lot of the times that I think is like quote unquote wrong is when you get hung up that like you think you can make be perfect. Like, I think that's the only, because that's not true. Like, so just, I think the first thing is like, being an empowered woman we know that like there's no such thing as being a perfect woman. Like, perfection isn't really is a distraction, I feel like, of or whatever. That's a whole other conversation. Right. When we're, ask yourself, like, who are you trying to be perfect for? And is that even like a real story? Like, I don't know. I think that is a distraction for so many people, but I think especially women. Just letting go of that, I think, is the first place to start, with kindness, of course.
Yeah. Well, man, I have so many questions that are like just like coming up, like bubbling up just from this conversation. Because like the other thing that I think about that, is a struggle, just again with my own story, but also with, coaching so many different women, is this idea that if you accept yourself where you are, like basically all hell is going to let loose. Right. Like, so I've heard like so many women have shared with me, Jana, like, I can't accept my body size as it is because I'm not happy with it. Like, right. Like, I want to lose weight. And from my perspective, there's nothing wrong with the desire to lose weight. It's all about like, in what way are we going about this? And I also believe that you should feel confident in your body size, right? Like, and that is relative to each person. But so many women will say, like, I can't accept my body in this moment because I'm afraid of losing the control, or feeling like I'm going to go and binge, or feeling like I'm going to go gain even more weight. What do you share with women that are saying that?
Yeah, I love this question. I love this idea of like, the moment we accept, we allow. And I think and it's so crazy you said this, because I was like thinking about this concept the other day, and one of my random thoughts to self. And I love this because I think that's the first thing, like, I would say to someone, and, I think women, I have definitely heard that, or just like, your behaviors around food, like, I don't want to accept it, or like yada, yada. But I think what the first thing I would say is like, there's a difference between accepting and like allowing or saying like, this is cool with me. Right. Like, we're not saying that if you accept your body's in an unfavorable place or your relationship with food is an unfavorable place, like we're not saying that if you're accepting it, you're allowing it. I think that's kind of a limiting belief. And I hate that shame shit where it's like, part of my French.
We're good. We're good. I love it.
Because I saw something on TikTok the other day and the guy was like, the truth is if you did this, then you're just like you're accepting and allowing it. And it's just like, in my opinion, like maybe people who are so motivated by shame, like that pushes them. But like, I don't think that's true. So accepting is kind of like, and first of all, I just want to side note to all women out there, no matter what your body looks like and where you are right now, you got to respect it, because it's not going to work if you don't respect, like, even if you need, if I don't want to say need, but if you're desiring it to lose 20 pounds or to gain 20 pounds or whatever it is, you have to respect what you have in order to like move forward in any area. Even like if it's money, like you might feel like, shoot, like this is unacceptable that my bank account looks like this, but it's like, you have to respect that at least you have a bank, like, the little thing, same thing with your body. So first of all, know that like accepting isn't allowing it per se, or like, isn't like, oh, I'm going to continue with this, because accepting where you're at, your reality, in my opinion, is one of the keys to being empowered. Because think about it. If we don't accept where we are because we're just too distraught about it, it's going to take us longer to get to where we want to be. Because it's almost like accepting it is like that awareness and like receiving the map, right? Like circa 2009 when we printed out the GPS maps, like
Map quest,
you're like, I'm lost, but like I'm not accepting it.
Yes,
I'm not accepting. Then someone's like, the equivalent, quote unquote, is that in my crazy mind is receiving the GPS map. So
yes.
No, I'm not accepting it. You're just like not taking the map. So all acceptance is like that surrender. It's like loosening the grip on the peanut butter jar. Like me and Lucy talk about this. Like if you're going the other way with the peanut butter jar, you're only tightening it when you're not when you accept it, you pause, and then you could say, oh, wait a minute. Now that I'm accepting it, I can look at the map. I can look at the peanut butter jar and realize I'm turning the wrong way. And now I can see what I need to do next. But without accepting it, it's like, this is unacceptable. And like, I'm not going to, like, you need to accept your reality in order to make it to the next level. That's my opinion on it. Maybe people think like, disagree with that, but I think you have to accept where you are to know where you are, and then to know how to get to where you want to be next.
Yes. I heard it. Oh my gosh. Yes. If I could just say that like 20 more times, because I've heard it described this way, and I love this. It's like exactly like you said, it's like on a map. You say you're at your current destination, but because you're not accepting your current destination, you actually put in an old address. And that old address cannot get you to the same destination because you are no longer at that old address. You are at your current address right now. So actually, when you put in for directions, it gives you the wrong coordinates and you can't get to your new destination because you did not accept where you are currently. And I love that, because we're not saying that, because you are accepting, you're going to continue to accept whatever else. Like it's not moving you forward. It's actually allowing you to take a true assessment of your current surroundings to be able to get the right next step, like step-by-step process to get to that end destination that you can visually see for yourself. And so every time a woman truly accepts herself in that moment, it could be, I accept my body and, I still want to lose 20 pounds if that's the goal, right? Like it's the duality of it. It's like we accept the current and we still have desires for change. Both are still true. And then we can really move forward.
100%. And I think I was just going to say that same exact thing, Jen, of like, acceptance doesn't mean like, okay, accept, period. It means acceptance. Like I've been in places that I don't like and I had no choice to accept. We all have. And it's like, you could say like this is not desirable. I still want X, Y, and Z, but I have to accept where I am. And it really is like, we don't want to accept for the various reasons that we said, like the stories that we make up. But I'm telling you guys, I think we all know, like, the sooner you accept, it's like the lubrication for like the next thing. Cause it's like, oh, okay. Like you said, it is kind of like the GPS, you're at the wrong house with the wrong address because we're too stubborn or prideful or whatever that is, or scared, whatever that is, to just be like, okay, this is where I am. And
Right.
you're not a failure. It actually takes strength to do that. That's why a lot of people don't. But it's like the quicker you accept where you are, the more you can move on, like move forward. So
Yeah.
yeah. And whenever it comes to your body, I can't emphasize enough. Like, even if you're dissatisfied with your body, like just accepting, and again, doesn't mean you can't have desires, like you said, but like accepting and like respecting. And like, even if you're in a place in your life where you're like, holy cow, like this is so undesirable, like just respect like where you've been and where you are. I don't know. I just think it helps you get your whole being like on the same side of the table with yourself, which is a lot easier to like move forward if you have like your mind on that side, your body on that side, your soul is like, come on guys, like we need to come together. Like it just complicates things.
so so true. Yeah. And like, I mean, essentially, like if we're not accepting where we are, like we remain in denial. And when we are in denial, we can't really move any which way. We just kind of stay there until we really, peel, I say it's the Band-Aid moment. Like we have to rip the Band-Aid off to truly see like what is underneath so that we can start getting air to it and, release that like shame and that guilt. Oh my gosh. So that brings me to another one. So you mentioned like shame is a big one within this like just realm of women in particular, right? Like we both work with women, so that's our main focus, but certainly men feel it too. But then there's also guilt that like shows up on the daily and is just like so seeped into prevention of like women caring for themselves. Like so many women have shared I don't know. I feel guilty for taking time for myself, or, I feel guilty because I should be doing X, Y, and Z. Where does this guilt come from?
Well, that's a good, I think again, kind of goes back to the conditioning of mostly for women as like the caretakers, putting yourself first, like we praise a lot of women and young girls from a young age of like, the more that you put yourself first, like, or others first or caretake for others, like that's like a good girl. Like we kind of, in my opinion, like on a societal level, condition girls and women into that role. And even as mothers, like it's almost like glorified to some extent. I think we're obviously making waves in that. So I think it's like happening just collectively, like in the subtle realm, which is really hard. And maybe a lot of like family dynamics, like that's just how it was. You grew up seeing your mother being quote unquote selfless and then praised for that. And just, but at the same time, your mother her health was suffering or her mental health or like all this other crap was suffering, but it's okay because she took care of the family. And I'm not saying like that's a beautiful thing, but I think to answer that question, I think a lot of that comes from a mix of, for women, at least in my opinion, like that conditioning we have. And I think also the sense of worth, well, I don't feel worthy enough. And I don't think this is like a conscious thing a lot of the times. Like, I think it's happening like subconsciously or unconsciously where we're like, I don't see how I deserve to take 10 minutes or whatever. Like that's asinine. Like either it's, you haven't even seen anything like that modeled before, or you might be struggling with your self-worth. There's probably a story around it, but I think there's a lot of things that could be working against us in that realm. And hopefully we're not using that as an excuse to not, make strides towards changing that narrative. But I think we're kind of set up for that in a lot of ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because in so many ways, like we're told, that you're being selfish or you're, self-centered. If heaven forbid, like you take some time or like for yourself, or if you set boundaries, or if you speak, the words that are really within you. And it's so interesting because as like I always say like the goal is not to be selfish. The goal is to be self-full. And that is something that my counselor shared with me when I was going through therapy, like, because I really, really struggled with that. That was just a huge narrative of like you need to be the good girl. You need to be selfless. You need to serve others before yourself. Like this is what it means to be a good woman. And so when you start stepping into, well, what does it actually mean to be a good woman to yourself? It's like there's just so many things that, come from it. So it's shifting it to be, no, we don't want to be like, the goal of taking care of yourself is not so that you are, selfish. It's so that you're self-full, so that you don't feel like you're going crazy, which a lot of women, can feel. But also like so that you are caring for yourself at a high level that in the long run makes you say like a better person to yourself, maybe a better person to your partner, to your kids, to society. I mean, it's just like such a trickle effect. Like, and I think you actually share this with me, like when your light shines, it helps illuminate those around you. And anyways, like I could just go so on a tangent on that because we really have to, understand like, why are we feeling guilty when we would allow and make it okay for others to do that? Like, that's really where like the reckoning is if you can if you like mentally can know that that's acceptable for say another female or another male, then why would that not be acceptable for you to have those acts and practices of self-care? And I always say, like sometimes you're not going to be number one, but can we at least get you in your top 5, right? Like for the day, can we at least get you in the top 5? Because maybe some days like your kids do come first because, for various reasons, maybe some days your partner does come first, but also on other days you get to come first. And I think that just makes it a better balance overall so that the female is not being neglected.
100%. And I think you said two really good things. Well, a lot of good things, but I just wanted to highlight the first thing. It's like, because what you were describing, Jen, I feel like is what so many women like talking about, like, what are the first steps to being an empowered woman? I think our first mistake is looking at the dogma or other people's, like, this is how to be a good woman. Right. So instead we want to ask that question to ourselves, like, what does it mean to me to be a good woman? And again, like, that's a really great way to actually connect with yourself and see like, what is, like Glennon Doyle says, like, what is true and beautiful to you? So like, that's I think the first kind of mishap is when we start to do all these things because it's what society tells us makes a good woman. We're going to start like running around and something inside of us is going to feel unsatisfied unless it aligns with what we feel is true and beautiful. But if you don't want kids and society is like, a good woman has kids. And like, I mean, I hope no one does. That would be a real insane way to like, not trust you, like listen to yourself, but like, you know what I mean? And like, you go do that and then think like, oh, I should now be a good woman because I listened, I had kids. But if that wasn't your truth and what was true and beautiful to you, you're going to be like, oh my God, well, that's why we're disappointed. That's why we're then resentful and not fulfilled. So I think the first thing is like, whose definition are you going by when it comes to like being a good woman, or what's your definition? Like, ask yourself that. And then I think the second thing, this is a cliche one, but I love the visual. There was a really good one. One of my clients sent it to me before, but it's like, if you can envision like self-care is like, you have a chandelier of cups, right? Like this cool thing kind of reminds me of that like drinking game, but like whatever, it's called chandelier. And then you have the pitcher of the water. And if you are that pitcher and you go to fill up those cups, the cups being the people in your life, and there's literally nothing in the pitcher, like what are you doing? So when you go to get the pitcher filled, which is putting yourself first, going to the gym, doing meditate, whatever is your thing, you get to define that. That's how you fill the pitcher. So then when you show up to the chandelier of cups, you have something to give them. So anytime your mind is like selfish, it's like, no, like what's in my cup? Like you truly cannot give if you have nothing in you. So it's really not, in my opinion, like, I don't think I get the sentiment, but like, we have to just like use that anecdote, like to remind ourselves, like, it's not, right? You know what's selfish, or no, I shouldn't, that's a horrible thing to say. I'm not going to say that, but like taking care of yourself, your health, like that is really bettering you, obviously, but the people in your life by being your best you. And that's like the alternative narrative, like not one we hear a lot, but yeah. There was another thing that you I was going to say the last thing, Janet, too, as you said, because I feel like this is a limiting belief as well. It's like, some days you have to put the kids first, or some days you put your husband first. Like, I just want to emphasize too, taking care of yourself doesn't necessarily mean like you being like, don't talk to me, honey, until I meditate and drink my coffee. Like, that doesn't, or like, I can't breastfeed right now because like, no, like, sorry, I just know someone breastfeeding right now. I don't know. But like, it just means like you could still it might in your day, it might look like you're putting others first, like literally first, which is fine. But like, it also means like, you're still working your way, you're working your way in. So it doesn't have to be like what so many of us as humans do, where we think in terms of black and white, where it's like, well, if I put myself first, I can no longer breastfeed my child. And it's like,
right.
No, like, slow down. Like that is not what
Yes. We're just not, we're starting the process of not like negating, ignoring, pacifying, justifying like your own needs, right? Like we're starting that process to like really say like, how can we get a little bit more balance in this equation where you are not forgotten in your own life equation? That's key. Exactly. Like you're part of the solution. I always share like you are the secret sauce to your own life. We have to have you as an ingredient in your own life to really get the secret sauce going. So, and so it just is, it's a whole other thing, but we're almost at time, sadly. I could like just talk for hours on this. What do you like when you think of just like the work that you do and the way that you transform women's lives? Like, what is just something that's like so pivotal in their journey that you've experienced that you would like all women to experience?
What a loaded question. I think to sum that up, I would say women or helping women connect to themselves, just that self-connection piece, whether that's connecting physically to your body, where in the food realm, the nourishment realm, to your intuition in just the life realm, but slowing down and connecting, being more mindful, having that self-awareness, whatever you want to call that, paired with accepting who you are and understanding that you are a uniquely beautiful soul and your worth is inherent, and that really you're here to do and be so much more than what we're conditioned, again, going back as women, like body, appearance and all that stuff. I think those are the pivotal things when women understand that their truth is beautiful and they are inherently worthy. I think that's when things change, right? Because everything we talked about like starts with really believing in our worth, and then just staying in connection with yourself, I think are the two biggest things.
So true. And it means it's such a, more rewarding. And like you said, like there's just the freedom to be you and to express all of you is something that I know that you give that gift to so many people, including myself. So I just continue to love your work and your perspectives on, women taking care of themselves and all that it means, from nutrition to movement to soul nourishment. I just love your approach, and I'm so thankful that you shared your passion for that. And I'm so curious just to hear what other women think as they tune into this episode.
Yes. Well, thank you again so much for having me.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day today to tune in. If you loved today's content, leave me a review letting me know exactly what you liked best, and remember to share my podcast with others to join the Nourish You community. If you want more great content like this between episodes, I encourage you to join my mailing list. You can click the link below in the show notes or check out my website at www.healthwins.org, and let's stay in touch. Until next time, I'm Jana. Talk soon.